Hi everyone. How's everyone doing? So yeah, feel free to start asking questions in the chat. I can also cover a few things that I've been doing on my end. So I'm getting a lot of questions from just people in different fields who want to get more profile building opportunities. And I think the one thing that is applicable to pretty much every field is outreach. So if you want to start landing opportunities, you need to be messaging people who are organizing those opportunities. I mean, it's not really, it's not, it doesn't get more complicated than that. It's just doing a lot of outreach, messaging a lot of people. So right now I'm averaging probably 100 to 200, sometimes even 300 messages a week. That's what seems to have worked in general in landing opportunities. It's not like I just send like 2 messages and I get like 5 opportunities. That's not really how it works. It is more like sending 100 messages, getting like 30 connection requests accepted, and having like 2 people reply. Anyone have questions? Any questions? But yeah, that's the one thing that I tell people to do in general. It is to do a lot of outreach. And something else that someone reached out to me and said really helped them with profile building was realizing that they could just tell a story about their work and then use that as a way to land judging opportunities or other profile building opportunities. It's always useful to show how your expertise can help someone who's organizing an event, someone who edits for a journal. You want to be always showing how your expertise is relevant to some of these people that you are approaching. You don't want to just reach out and then kind of leave things unclear or generic. You want to show that you've actually researched before making an ask. You want to show that you are mindful of their needs. This goes not just for events, it goes for reaching out to reporters. In fact, that's something that a lot of people have been asking me about. So I don't really do as much reporter outreach anymore as I used to. A month ago, I was doing like 20 to 50 messages to reporters, but now I do like maybe like 3 to 5 a month. But I'm still getting replies from reporters. I just shared the contact of a former Business Insider reporter within my newsletter. So I'm still getting replies. The thing with reporters, especially the ones that are more high profile or have a lot of work out there, is that you can't really dictate to them what they should be covering because they're not going to listen to you. They tend to already have their own coverage needs or have needs in mind, and it's really up to you to find opportunities for you to fit within their needs. So a lot of people think that reporters are just going to listen to whatever they have to say, and that in order to get covered by a reporter, you just have to present a strong story. Yes, that does apply in some circumstances. For example, I recently added a Wired reporter to my contacts database within my newsletter, and I think like at least 50 people reached out to him, and he covered one person who had a really interesting story to tell. So, I mean, there are situations where you can present a really interesting story that is highly relevant to the reporter, and then they might modify the coverage needs to support your needs. But usually it's just finding a match between their existing needs and what you can offer. And that just comes down to reaching out to a lot of the right reporters. And the right reporters, you don't really know in general. You don't really know if they're the right reporters until you actually have a conversation with them. So the best thing you can do is just to do a lot of reporter outreach. Just message them on LinkedIn, email them. A lot of them check emails all the time, so you can always just message them or email them. Hi, Henry. Anyone have questions? Anyone have questions about how to land profile building opportunities? So we can talk more about outreach. A lot of outreach is not just about going to events. I mean, going to events is a great way to meet more people, but I think the more efficient, I mean, a lot of you have full-time jobs, and probably only have like an hour or two for outreach a day, if at all, probably 30 minutes realistically. I think doing a lot of outreach on LinkedIn is really what helps with landing a lot of profile building opportunities. And what you want to do is you want to find the opportunities you want to get involved in or the organizations you want to get involved in first, and then come up with a list of people that you can reach out to see if they know the organizers of a particular event that is of interest to you, or to a particular, or maybe they're the organizers themselves. How many such opportunities events should one do for filling for the visa? There is no such thing as a threshold for these opportunities in general. It's not really about the number of opportunities. It's more about how strong of an argument you can present for how you've risen to the top of your field for EB-1A and O1, where O1 is top 25% or so. For EB-1A, it's top 3 to 5%, or even top 3%. For NIW, it's more about your proposed endeavor. Can you show that you're well positioned for your proposed endeavor? Can you show that your proposed endeavor has substantial merit, and those activities and opportunities should show that you are actually in a good position to carry out your proposed endeavor? Yeah, so it varies. Hi, Tyrant. Anyone have questions? But yeah, going back to what I was talking about, I think it's more realistic to do outreach for 30 minutes a day, every single day, and target organizations and opportunities that you have found, and maybe attend one in-person event a week if possible, or every 2 weeks. It's not absolutely necessary to attend in-person events. I mean, it's good to attend events that are highly relevant to your field because you can just have those conversations with people. But if you only have, say, 30 minutes a day, then you should really just be doing a lot of online outreach. That is actually something that can also help with landing a lot of these profile building opportunities. And that is actually what I've been doing, except I've been doing 100 to 300 messages a week to help some of you land profile building opportunities. Do speaking opportunities at conferences help? Yes, especially if they can show that you are a top expert in your field with a high level of expertise, because that contributes to your argument that you're risen to the top of your field. So yeah, it does. Speaking opportunities do help. Anyone have questions? Any other questions? Anyone have questions? Jason, for judging roles, would a mixture of peer reviews and judging hackathons help a case? For EB-1A, yes. Just make sure you're judging industry professional focused hackathons. They can allow students as well. They just can't be just student hackathons. But generally, yes, for O1 and EB-1A, a mix of those two activities can help with judging. Those activities can also help with EB2 and IW if that is what you are asking about, but they will have to be related to the proposed endeavor that you are focusing on as part of your case. But yes, those two are good examples of judging roles to take on. And then there are also other kinds of judging you can do, like reviewing submissions for a conference, reviewing submissions, speaker submissions, reviewing committee applications. There are also quite a few other types of judging opportunities that you can look into. Anyone else have questions? Anyone have questions? Would reviewing conference papers help? Will this come under judging criteria? What's number to review? Papers, yes, this does help. This counts as peer reviewing. There is no specific number. You do not. I just don't think that's the right question to ask anymore. It's more about whether you are doing high quality activities. And if you constantly keep getting high quality opportunities, I think you should just take on as many of them as possible, unless you're at a point where, and I have encountered very few people at this point. I can think of one person who is at a point where he doesn't need more profile building, but he is still profile building. He's profile built to a point where he's just getting so many opportunities, and he's an extremely strong profile. I think he's the only example of a person I would say does not need more profile building. So if you ask like what number, I would say you probably just don't have enough papers reviewed right now. If you are just getting more high quality papers to review and you're getting more and more of these requests, just take on as many of them as possible, is what I'm going to say for this question, since it comes up all the time. And the only people who should be limiting themselves is people who have the kind of profile that I've only seen in one person. And he has a C-suite role, so he already has an extremely strong leading or critical role. Have an opportunity to do workshops at a local tech community. Do you think I can benefit from that? It depends on what kinds of workshops. You could turn those workshops into judging opportunities potentially. You could try to ask for some sort of judging to happen at the end of the workshop. It really depends on what kind of workshop though. But I have seen more workshops where there have been more judging opportunities at the end, where the instructor reviews the work of attendees. That is something you can potentially look into as well. Is this specific to EB-1A, or do you cover NIW as well? NIW I do cover. It's just very based on your proposed endeavor. Also, the standards of activities are not as high as for EB-1A. So, for example, judging a student hackathon could potentially help with your NIW, but probably will not help with EB-1A. Hi, Jason. I am in the data center construction industry. Do you have any suggestions for finding co-authors for papers? I think you might want to speak. You might want to introduce yourself in the private group chat that I have going on. That is a place to look at. You might also want to just reach out to people who are a part of IEEE and are in your industry. You can just reach out to them and then ask if they are working on papers and to see if they would want to have co-authors like you. Speaking at conferences or key panel discussions during conferences help. What criteria it will be. Probably leading a critical role or even final merits, depending on the kinds of conferences you are referring to. But generally speaking, you will want to present at conferences where you can show that you have a high level of expertise, and you can show that by the nature of the talks that you give, and or the people who are attending the conference and listening to your talk. How do you define high quality? In the case of EB-1A or O1, anything that helps show that you are risen to the top of your field, anything that is generic, that is nondescript, that people would just kind of like forget about if they're in your field and would probably say it is not indicative of a high level of expertise in your field, is probably not going to be high quality. Mentoring and hackathon would help. It helps you with meeting more top professionals in your field and potentially getting access to more judging opportunities. Outside of that, it is not as useful as, say, being an official judge, especially for an industry-focused hackathon. Also, to get roles for judging, is there a basic requirement, threshold to overcome? Depends. You need to have the expertise that is required to judge the hackathon. Each hackathon is different. Outside of that, it just comes down to doing a lot of outreach. So I've probably said this many, many times already. You need to be doing a lot of outreach, not just 2 messages a week or 5 or even 10 messages a week, probably 100 to 300. I think that's where outreach becomes incredibly useful. If you are consistently hitting 300 messages a week, you will probably end up in a spot where you will have so many judging opportunities that you just won't know what to do with them. And I have encountered several people who have been doing that, and they have been getting so many opportunities that they just don't know what to do with them. Also, I can just briefly go into some of my profile building resources. So for those of you who have been seeing some of my posts, so as part of my newsletter, so I currently run a paid newsletter for $12 per month. As part of my newsletter, you will also get access to some of my newsletter resources, which includes a profile building opportunities database that currently lists over 400 opportunities categorized by field and criteria. These are just examples of opportunities that you can start looking into to start building your profile. Some of these opportunities are extremely high profile, so you will definitely want to look into them. These are just examples of starting points for getting involved in your field. I also share a bunch of video resources as part of my newsletter. So these are just recorded conversations with EB-1A recipients. Some of them are insight sessions with people who actually got approved and are in my private group. But these are just some of them, and this is a Q&A with an IEEE section chair. So these are just recorded conversations and workshops with people who are relevant to a lot of you who are profile building. So outside of that, I also run a private group which is a part of my newsletter again, which is where members have been able to find co-authors for papers, have been able to find opportunities shared by other members, and have also been able to find collaborators in general for profile building. So as part of this group, you can just work with a bunch of people who are also profile building, and you will most likely find someone who is also in your field who is profile building. What is your feedback on Forbes Technology Council membership? Is it holds good value? Probably not. I've seen it many, many times. It's just, yeah. If you have some sort of compelling angle that shows how this indicates that you're risen to the top of your field, then probably, but I've seen it so many times that I don't think it really holds that much value. Yeah. It's also not clear what you get as a member. at least to me. Maybe I haven't looked at it enough, but no one has come to me and said I was part of the Forbes Technology Council, and as a result, I was able to directly work with CEOs on thought-provoking, thought leadership pieces. I haven't seen that. So it's not that strong to me. Anyone have questions? Recommended places to start reaching out depends on your field, but most likely you can just search things like your field and in conference, apply to speak or call for speakers or call for judges like that. Use those kinds of terms. You can also talk to people who are in your field and ask them what they are doing. And that just comes down to searching for these people on LinkedIn. How many fellowship membership are enough? There's no such thing as enough for the membership criterion, short of maybe like the top fellowship in your entire field. It's not really about the number of fellowships. It's more about the quality of what you are doing and how it shows you have risen to the top of your field. In fact, I have seen people with BCS now get questioned even though they have BCS. And it is probably because, I mean, this is my guess, it's probably because BCS is coming up a lot. Like a lot of officers are just seeing BCS over and over again. So as a result, it's becoming more commonplace. Like a lot of people, I see a very clear difference between, there's a certain type of profile builder that just keeps doing activities that no one has ever heard of, but clearly show that they have risen to the top of their field. They do not ask questions about what specific thing should I go for. They are more about going out there and having conversations, which then lead to opportunities that people have never heard of, but can still show they've risen to the top of their field. Then there's another type of profile builder that goes for specific generic opportunities that come up that everyone is doing. And because someone got approved and they did this specific opportunity, therefore that opportunity must be the gold standard. But that's not really the case. That's just an assumption a lot of you are making. So I would move away from having this checklist mentality of like, how many opportunities do I need? How many fellowships do I need? Does this count? And more towards what kinds of activities can I be doing that actually show that I've risen to the top of my field? And that could be one single opportunity for one criteria. It's possible to have one single membership help you claim the entire membership criteria. It just comes down to how strong of an argument you can make for fulfilling the criterion, membership being something that has a requirement that requires outstanding achievements, that sort of thing. You need to be able to understand first the criterion and then show that the activity meets the criterion and also that it shows that you're risen to the top of your field. That is the mentality you need to be embodying and not how many activities do I need? How many check boxes do I need to check to build a strong profile? It's not really like that. To judging student hackathons at uni sponsored by industry leaders like Google, MS, Morgan Stanley hold value for NIW. Depending on your proposed endeavor, yes. Yeah, it depends on your proposed endeavor though. Is your newsletter specific to EB-1A or do you cover tech-related endeavor for NIW? It is for EB-1A, NIW, and O1, and it's because all activities for all three are all related. They're all about showing, well, EB-1A and O1 are about showing how you've risen to the top of your field, but NIW is also about showing how you are well equipped, for example, to pursue your proposed endeavor. And that is related to NIW. Anyone else have questions? What is your view on high salary criteria? Heard mixed feedback. USC officers are not honoring it anymore. Are you aware of it? I have not heard this from the lawyers I work with. It's usually based on base salary, 90th percentile for your particular occupation within your particular state. That is one way to argue a strong high salary claim. But yeah, I haven't really heard anything about that. Anyone else have questions? Anyone have questions? What are your thoughts on the current state of profile building going on in the market, where it's a cookie cutter, all things done package? I have never suggested a cookie cutter, sort of all things done sort of package to look into, even before all this talk about this cookie cutter package stuff going on. I've never recommended that at all, even with the people I work with. Even my entire newsletter is focused on helping you build the mentality you need to go find your own profile building opportunities. It's not about prescribing certain things and saying that if you have these things, you will have a strong profile. I don't think there are very, very few opportunities out there that actually, if you take on, help you show a strong profile. Maybe like you're on the board of an IEEE society, that's pretty strong. But short of those kinds of activities, most of them don't really ensure you have a strong profile. So my thoughts have always been the same on this sort of profile building. If someone says you need to do these 10 things and then you have a strong profile, either they're recommending the very, very top opportunities, or it's just this kind of thing that they're recommending and it's just all cookie cutter. And I don't know, like maybe it works for like 2 out of 10 people, I'm not sure, but I've never recommended this sort of thing. And I still do not recommend this sort of thing. Yeah. What I do recommend is finding resources that teach you the mentality you need to build a strong profile, because that is still a primary misunderstanding of EB-1A and IW-1. People just don't know what it means to have a strong profile, and that is probably why they go for these cookie cutter solutions. Because someone is saying, oh, like I got approved for EB-1A, therefore I know what it actually takes, when there probably be just like one data point and like 100 other data points, and maybe there were like 90 other people who had their exact same profile who got denied. So that is another thing too. Just because someone got approved for EB-1A does not mean they're automatically someone you should be looking to for like a prescription. They might be able to provide tips based on their experiences of building their own EB-1A profile. But if someone's offering a prescription saying these 10 things, you do them, you get approved, you should stay away from that. But that's just my view. What are the best fellow membership options? There's no such thing. IEEE fellow, you get that, that's very strong. Outside of that, I have not really seen. There are probably some very niche examples in different fields, but I know for your particular field, IEEE fellow is pretty good. IET and BCS can help, but again, it's not about going for fellowships. It's not about going for these particular checkbox activities. If you can't tell a story about how you have risen to the top of your field, if you can't present a compelling narrative, having all of this checked off is not going to help as much as you think. I think that's where a lot of people don't really have enough going on, is they just have a bunch of random activities that don't really tie together and show that they've risen to the top of their field. That is a primary problem that I see in a lot of profile builders, especially senior professionals. How many string criteria do you recommend for approval? There is no particular number of criteria I recommend. Generally speaking, 4 to 5 if you want to have a pretty strong profile, but some people will actually get by with 3, depending on how strong the criteria are. All right, last question. When someone is ready, do you recommend reviewing with an expert to get EB-1A to get feedback on the EB-1 profile? Do you do that? I do that through my profile building calls. You can also speak to a lawyer and they will base it on their adjudication experiences. I just base them on the profiles that I've seen. Yeah, so I do that. But it really depends on the field you're in. So I mostly look at tech profiles, but I've also looked at other fields, but mostly tech. All right, that is all for today's live stream. Thanks again for joining, everyone. Thanks, everyone.